Mr. Squidward. Welcome to the night shift.
And hello, everybody, and we welcome you into another edition of the MI6 Sports Network's late night talk show. That is the night shift, folks, coming away a half hour earlier this evening on this Sunday, September 27th, 2020. I wanted to first, folks, say we apologize, by the way, for missing our programs on Tuesday and Saturday. As you probably know, again, some technical problems have been kind of sidelining us the past couple days, and also weather also being very out of control as another big-time factor. As well here today. With that, though, folks, Callan McClurg joining you here from the home studio in San Diego, joined tonight for the first 15 or 20 minutes of the show here by fellow correspondent Isaiah Leung, also joining us from somewhere in San Diego, California. As mentioned, Isaiah's in town for at least until tomorrow. Again, having some family move into University of California, San Diego. Isaiah, welcome into America's finest city, man, and how we doing tonight? Good to see you.
Callan, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, you're right. You know, San Diego is probably the best, the best city in California. I mean, the weather is just so nice here. The tax is not that much. I mean, and also there's a McDonald's right next to my place where I'm staying at right now, and I'm gotta tell you, man, they make the best iced coffee I've ever had. You know, I've been to a lot of McDonald's, had their iced coffee, iced caramel coffee, and none can make it like how that McDonald's made it today. Like, it was just so amazing. I was joking around earlier with Callan. I was telling Callan, could we swap McDonald's? Like, maybe somehow, some way use like a big crane and, take that McDonald's out and put it where I live and put my crappy McDonald's right over here. That would just be so perfect. So I could just have that iced coffee whenever I want to. But, other than that, it's been great. It's been a great vacation thus far. I got to watch a lot of Rams football and Chargers football. Even though the games didn't really look that good in the beginning, it turned out to be very exciting. Plus, my boy Nick Mullins balled out today for my Niners, and my A's got a very easy playoff series. So other than that, it's really good, man. Really, really good day.
A lot going on, folks. As mentioned, we're going to be here at least until for the next 30 or 45 minutes, maybe not the full hour again, as Isaiah will leave us, as mentioned, when, in fact, we get done with the NFL segment about the Niners at least. But again, folks, a quick reiteration about what, in fact, this program is all about, folks. We're here every Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday, of course, minus this weekend. We've been having some tech problems here in regards to Facebook streaming, internet problems, you name it, the whole kit and caboodle. But, of course, folks, you can find the night shift on air every Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday, right here on the MI6 Sports Network. Again, we come here every Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday to pretty much in a way for those of you that probably are not able to be on your phone checking your fantasy team or checking scores or checking news and getting updates about maybe your favorite team or players over the course of maybe your work day, or maybe you work a job that probably keeps you away from all the news and stuff. We try to give you a Cliff Notes version of your Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday in sports right here every night at 10 o'clock Pacific time. But again, we moved up the start time to, again, accommodate Isaiah, again, as he'll be here for at least the first NFL segment. But, of course, folks, we'll also take your input on over on Facebook, of course, live in the chat box. And also, folks, as mentioned, usually when your comments do, in fact, come across, we can do this and put your comment on air. And also, if you have questions, we'll also do our best to, of course, read those as well. So, in fact, feel free, folks, to fire away. Don't be bashful. And write in those questions, comments, or concerns, and we'll, again, do our absolute best to make sure that those are, in fact, read live on the air. With that, Isaiah, let's begin, buddy, with some of the big games in the NFL, man. First of the three games I wanted to talk about tonight, specifically today. First, Niners playing at the Giants today, not the Jets, as what I had on the schedule or for our rundown. That was last week. But, of course, though, Isaiah, probably a big-time game for Nick Mullins. Again, filling in for a injured Jimmy Garoppolo. And again, how would this wounded, like Walking Dead Niners team look playing the Giants, of course, also a 0-2 ball club, struggling big time to score points. The Niners, I think, made a statement with their, I believe, 34 or 36-9 victory. And Nick Mullins, at least in game one, Isaiah, looked promising in regards to a very stellar performance, 343 passing yards in wake of Garoppolo's absence. But again, though, Isaiah, sadly, more players leave the game for San Francisco today with injury. Isaiah, give us your thoughts on, of course, your boy Nick Mullins, but also more than anything else, the Niners utterly dominating both New York teams within a 2-week span.
Yeah, so first of all, Callan, I just got to say, your mistake that you made in putting the Jets onto the rundown for tonight, I don't blame you, because when I was watching today's game, I couldn't tell the difference between this Giants team and that Jets team. I mean, both those two teams are absolutely putrid. They both look so disoriented on offense and defense. They both got blown out by the Niners. So I think they both need to clean house in order to get back where they need to be, and that is playing for a championship. And I also feel really bad for the people of New York, because New York is like LA, both big markets. You have a fan base that really wants to win, and they're always treated to really bad football, and I really feel really bad for them. But about the Niners, though, Nick Mullins. Like I said on fan response back on Thursday, I thought that I didn't want to laugh at injury, but I said that I thought that the 49ers, even though they lost a lot of pieces with guys like Solomon Thomas going down, guys like Nick Bosa tearing the ACL, Jimmy Garoppolo with the high ankle sprain, I honestly thought they got better, because now you can shift Javon Kinlaw into a starter role on the defensive line. And Javon Kinlaw has been looking absolutely amazing in his short amount of time in the NFL with the 49ers. I mean, this guy has been absolutely out there mauling people. Teams have had to put double teams and triple teams on him. He's getting so much pressure on the inside, and which is letting our edge rushers like Deion Jordan today and Ziggy Ansah get free runs at the quarterback, because teams have to worry so much about Javon Kinlaw on the inside, and he's really doing good at stopping the run, which is a primary responsibility for guys that are in the middle of the defensive line have to do. So I thought that would be an improvement. You don't want to see injuries, but I thought that Kinlaw being in the middle of the D line as a starter would be an improvement for the Niners. Nick Mullins, I've been saying, I think he is a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo, simply because I think he has the better arm. I think that he's more poised. He's got great footwork in the pocket. He's got a high IQ. I mean, this guy just lives, breathes, and dies football. I mean, this guy's amazing. Kyle Shanahan, when you watch this game today, I felt like he was more willing to unleash it with Nick Mullins, like unleash his play calling, than he is with Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that, he knows Jimmy's limitations, which is the deep ball, because Jimmy doesn't really know when to put a lot of air on the ball or put a little bit of air. He just doesn't know when to put the right amounts of air when throwing the football deep. So you can't really, do that with Jimmy Garoppolo. But I feel like, Kyle Shanahan, when Nick Mullins is in there, he just can get a lot more creative than with Jimmy G. I think that this was a great performance by Nick Mullins. This guy was throwing darts down the field. I know it was against a really bad Giants defense, but this guy looked really calm and really poised like he always does. And, like I always say, even though a team is really bad, they still have NFL players on their team, NFL
Correct.
caliber players. It's not like they're playing against high school teams or college teams. If they were playing those teams, then fine, you can give them an excuse. But, he was carving up NFL players. So what he did today was really good. I hope he can continue it. I don't know if they're going to bring back Jimmy Garoppolo for Thursday's game against the Eagles. I personally wouldn't do it. I would let Garoppolo rest for one more week, just because, the Eagles, we know how bad they are. I mean, they tied with the lowly Cincinnati Bengals today. So that just shows you how bad their team is. But yeah, I just think, honestly, Nick Mullins, I think he should remain the starter for the Niners moving forward. He's really cheap as well. So I think Jimmy Garoppolo honestly has lost his job with the 49ers.
Isaiah, Casey King writes in with a very great comment. Want to get your thoughts on this. Casey writes, "Hey guys, NFC West is looking like a great division, as we got 3 teams that are 2-1 and 1 team at 3-0. Yes, only 3 games, but division looking tough, and I still think it's going to be the best division, despite his Rams losing today. Very proud of their effort. They made him a second half to come back and almost win the game." Now, Isaiah, I read a very interesting story on TQN Sports, I want to say, on Wednesday or Thursday this past week, saying that the projections right now, after at the time 2 games played, and now probably even after 3 games being played, that after perhaps 3 games right now, the sportsline.com odds and projections, by virtue of in a way a expanded playoff field in the NFL with one more wild card spot being added in both the AFC and NFC, there's a shot all 4 NFC West teams could make the postseason after the first 2 weeks of the season, which would be, of course, the first time ever, folks, in league history that a division sent all of its teams into the postseason. Isaiah, do you think that even at this early juncture, two-part question. For one, is the NFC West, in your mind, the best division in all of football? And also, secondly, could it be possible that all 4 of those teams from the NFC West get into the postseason party in your mind, with there being one more wild card spot, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think it is the best division right now in football. I think that we all knew coming into this season that it was going to be like that. I think we didn't know. What we didn't know was the Rams having the success that they are having right now, because the Rams lost a lot of pieces both on offense and defense, with guys like Todd Gurley leaving, Clay Matthews on the defensive side leaving, as well as Corey Littleton. So we didn't really know that the Rams would get off to this great start that they've gotten off to, which is 2-1. I think they should have won today, but that's a story for a different day. But the Rams being 2-1, the Seahawks being that juggernaut they are, the 49ers, I think they're the most loaded team in the NFC West. I mean, they beat a Giants team with their second and third stringers. They whooped them. So that was really impressive. And also the Arizona Cardinals, they've got the reigning rookie of the year in Kyler Murray. They've got DeAndre Hopkins. They've got a talented offense. I'm worried about their defense though, but Arizona's off to a good start as well. So this is going to be a bloodbath of a division. Everybody's, I think, going to be beating each other up. But as far as your question though, Callan, about whether we would see maybe all 4 NFC West teams make it, I honestly don't know, because I think that my fear is that all these teams are going to beat each other up to the point where the best team in the NFC West will be like 10-6 at best, or even 9-7, because of all the battles going on with each other. And I have a feeling that, if the best in the NFC West is either like 10-6 or 9-7 at best, and then I think you can have a team from other divisions make it with a better record, simply because the NFC West is beating each other up.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, at least right now, it looks like it could be a very promising division from a start, at least right now. But at the same time, though, again, you play those divisional games and you're bound to have upsets, or you're bound to have, one team win, one team lose. But again, folks, the Niners with Nick Mullins at the helm today and his 343 passing yards wallop the Giants today up in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Isaiah, before we let you go, man, we are getting close to that 15-minute time frame for you here. Of course, we don't want to keep you on too long. Again, as mentioned, you're kind of in a way on vacation, enjoying yourself here in Southern California in San Diego. But Isaiah, I guess the question to kind of send you on your merry way for tonight, bud, is pretty simple. I think you've probably been a very strong, very vocal about this. At this rate, okay, so Mullins gets over or passes test 1. He's got, 2 more at least at max coming up. Isaiah, if the play of Nick Mullins continues after 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a 4th week perhaps, and say the Niners go 3-1, 4-0, 2-2 maybe, or they perhaps have a setback and they go 1-3 maybe in that stretch. But regardless, Isaiah, depending on how Nick Mullins continues to perform after this one good start, if he can follow it up with maybe 2 or 3 or 4 more, or at least 3 more at max, would this in your mind create a controversy at the quarterback position in your mind for San Francisco?
Oh, I for surely think it will, because there's already a lot of Niner fans that favor Nick Mullins over Jimmy Garoppolo. So the better he plays, the louder those voices are going to get. And if Nick Mullins goes 3-0 and throws for 300 yards plus per game with a couple touchdowns and no interceptions, or even 1 interception each game, I honestly think that Nick Mullins will be the starter because Kyle Shanahan loves to ride with the hot hand, and Nick Mullins is going to have the hot hand after those 3 games if he does indeed get it done. I just think that the biggest issue if you're gonna bench Jimmy Garoppolo is how it's gonna be the look of benching a guy that you gave $135 million to. So that contract, I don't think you can really move on from it. That's the biggest thing. I think the 49ers are gonna have more incentive to play Garoppolo simply because of his big contract and not make themselves look like, hey, we messed up and just put him on the bench.
And with that, Isaiah, a couple of more comments real quick, or actually one more before we let you go, actually from Christy Wilson. Christy says, I think if Mullins continues to do well, then there will in fact be a quarterback controversy. I think a lot of people, Isaiah, agree, but what would you add on to that before we let you go?
Yeah, it's the same thing I've been saying on Fan Response and Wild Sports Talk is that, Nick Mullins, he's on the clock. He's wanted to be an NFL starting quarterback his entire life. And, these next 3 games are against very lowly opponents or not next 3 games, the next 2 games added with this one, you have the Giants, the Eagles, and the Dolphins. 3 really lowly teams. If Nick Mullins in this 3 games can show what he did today, then, he will be a starting quarterback in the NFL next season, whether it's with San Francisco or whether that's with another team.
And with that, Isaiah, again, man, enjoy the rest of your time here. We'll try to hook up tomorrow, if not next time for sure, when all the COVID-related issues are hopefully by the time gone. But thanks for hopping in real quick, bud, and we'll see you next time, and maybe tomorrow, if not later this week.
Yeah, Callan, I will try to. I mean, I won't be on Wild Sports Talk tomorrow, but who knows? Maybe if I'm really amped up about something, about maybe the A's or maybe the Phillies fire their GM, I'll call in from the beach and just go on a rant about how Matt Klantak is the worst general manager of all time.
All right. With that, Isaiah, have a good rest of your night and take care and say hi to the family for all of us, please.
All right, man. I'll see you later.
Sounds good. There he goes, folks. Isaiah Leung joining us on the road here in San Diego. Again, we're trying to get together, but of course, COVID things going on at my house in regards to work and things like that. So, folks, we'll still progress on here on the night shift for at least the next roughly half an hour or so. Again, folks, but again, as we usually say, we'll again take your input on all things going on in the sports world. Again, questions, comments, concerns. Again, folks, feel free to fire away, and I'll do my best to run the show here for the remaining part of tonight's program up until at least hopefully 10:15 or 10:30, whichever one comes first tonight. With that, folks, let's get to the other big game I wanted to talk about today, and that was the Chicago Bears and the Atlanta Falcons. Once again, folks, finding a way to shoot themselves in the foot by giving away another huge lead. The Falcons lose to the Bears at home 30-26. They give up 20 points in the fourth quarter and also lose to the Bears backup quarterback, one Nick Foles, in this ball game, who replaced Mitchell Trubisky. Trubisky played the first half of the game for Chicago, going 13 of 22 with 128 passing yards, a TD, and 1 interception, but though was sacked twice in this game, and also as well had a 59.5 QBR in this game, and also had a quarterback rating of 71.8%, while Foles came in the third quarter and went 16 of 29 with 188 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was not sacked in the game, had a 65.7 QBR, and also had a 95.2 quarterback rating. Again, the Bears put up 20 points, folks, in the fourth quarter. And I believe, folks, sorry about that, folks, as we have that is the problem when you pull up box scores and videos begin to play for no reason in the background. So I turned off my speakers so we don't have that hopefully happen here again. But with that, though, folks, is more so again, folks, Chicago once again comes back being down by a pretty big margin, folks, in this game. But once again, it is the Atlanta Falcons just giving away a ball game for a opposition. Matt Ryan, by the way, folks, was 19 of 38 for 238 yards with 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He was sacked twice and also had a 44.7 QBR and had a 67.7 passer rating in this game. But once again, folks, oh my, it is the same old story once again for the Atlanta Falcons, who I believe, folks, per a stat I saw by Field Yates of NFL Network, I believe, folks, this is the first time in roughly 20 plus years that a NFL franchise or team has blown consecutive leads of over 10 or 16 points in 2 games and has lost them both. And that team has become the Atlanta Falcons. But not just that, though, folks. Much like, folks, what we just heard from Isaiah about the Bears and Mitchell Trubisky, this folks, is probably one of the worser love-hate relationships with quarterbacks and a fan base, in my opinion. And even as a Bears fan, I have long said that Trubisky is not the guy for Chicago. I would have liked to have seen Foles win that job at a training camp or virtual training camp this year, or, maybe go elsewhere. I think that Mitch had maybe a couple of good years with the Bears, but then at the same time, some injuries, poor decisions, and also maybe not the right system in place for Trubisky. And I think, though, that Chicago fans, myself included, kind of in a way got our wish in seeing Nick Foles come in. And Foles, like we said, like we've seen, folks, Nick Foles is probably, I wouldn't say like the best, but probably one of the most knowledgeable and probably most well-rounded backup quarterbacks right now that we've seen in the NFL, just by virtue of how we have seen him when he took over, folks, for Carson Wentz in Philadelphia, and even before that, too, maybe briefly in Jacksonville or elsewhere in the NFL when he came out of Arizona. But, folks, this quarterback controversy, is over. I think that with Nick Foles' play during this game should at least tell Coach Matt Nagy, please do not go back to Mitch Trubisky next week when you play again, because I think that the Bears fans probably got their wish. As mentioned. For one, Foles threw more passes, completed 3 more passes than Trubisky, threw for 60 more yards than Trubisky, averaged more on his passing plays, 2 more touchdowns. Yeah, they both had 1 interception, but Foles was not sacked, had a better QBR, and a better passer rating. I think, folks, that at this rate, I know it's 1 game, but at the same time, though, folks, Chicago really, I think, has no margin for error. They cannot afford to give up this 3-0 start by going back to Mitch Trubisky. Again, folks, it's probably pretty harsh, but Chicago fans, including your host here, has just not wanted to see Mitch Trubisky. It is a big time. Sadly, it's a knock on Mitch for either his play, maybe the play calling not going the right way, and a lot of other factors. I think that also has sadly been kind of put on the plate of Trubisky so far in his time in Chicago. And, folks, especially when you are playing with the Bears and it's a live and die with that organization. It's live and die. If you're not winning the division titles or you're not winning championships, that club and those fans will turn on you probably as bad, if not worse, than Philadelphia fans, honestly. And we'll talk about the Eagles momentarily, folks. But again, Chicago wins 30-26. And once again, folks, Atlanta, my goodness gracious, the Falcons, they just cannot, folks, catch a break in regards to the Super Bowl. And now, folks, 2 weeks in a row, the Falcons are unable to protect a 20-point or a 16-plus point lead. And, of course, it goes back to the very, terrible effort on that onside kick against the Cowboys. And now, folks, I just kind of feel like, though, this, sadly, becomes a situation now where it kind of spirals out of control. And, folks, like I've said a couple times, maybe a bit more, though. But I've been in these situations a lot, folks, or was in my time playing sports, when, you look like you feel like you're playing great, and then a mistake happens, and you're like, oh, no, the wheel's going to come off the bandwagon now. And pretty much, folks, in my mind, that becomes a snowball effect. When it's one mistake compiled, and then there's another mistake. There's another drop pass. There's another fumble. There is another there's just more things layered on top of each other, when in fact things get worse and worse and worse when you compound mistakes and you can't find a way to stop the bleeding. It's kind of like trying to stop a big inning in baseball and things like that. And, folks, I do think, though, that How on earth, though, does Dan Quinn survive Monday? How does he go and face the media for his media briefing either tomorrow or Tuesday and talk about, another double-digit lead that they could not protect? I don't see, folks, how Dan Quinn makes it past week 4. If the Falcons go 0-4 to start this season, I do not see how Dan Quinn is even brought back. I would think Arthur Blank would fire him directly after that game is over, because Atlanta, honestly, I think, folks, it becomes worse if for the third straight week the Falcons blow a multiple-point lead. If that happens for a third straight week, I do not see how Dan Quinn is employed when this game is, in fact, over with next week against their upcoming opponent. With that, folks, some thoughts here real quick. Christy Wilson, Falcons choked again. I would have to have my man Stephen Wang do another song for that in regards to the Vikings lose again, the Falcons choked again. James Gonzalez writes in to say, Falcons falconing, they should just delete their franchise and honestly pull the plug and start over again. My man Angel Barragan Jr. says, Callan, the Falcons are the bad news bears of the NFL. And like I said, though, as well, Angel, whenever you play sports, if you've been there, buddy, I know I've been there plenty of times, or you've watched sports for a long time. I know that you've watched sports for a long time. Everyone, I think, on the show has watched sports for a long time. You see it happen so much, though, sadly, when you see a team make like one mistake. And you're like, okay, maybe they can overcome it. But then when it's like another mistake after another, and it's like, they're stubbing their toe, the wheels are coming off the bandwagon, they're going downhill, it becomes a giant snowball effect. That's what teams cannot afford to do. And especially, folks, in Atlanta's case, it's protecting multiple point leads. I guarantee you, if they're protecting maybe if they're potentially, maybe in my mind, protecting a lead below 10 points or below 15 points, they may have a chance. Then again, though, they blew a 16-point lead today. They were up 26-10 on the lowly Chicago Bears, and they put Nick Foles in, and bang, they give up 20 unanswered points in the fourth quarter to lose another game so incrementally from a second consecutive week. If you're a Falcons fan, you have got to be either infuriated or super frustrated with how this team has played. And so far, and also Casey says, Callan, Dan Quinn, I believe, becomes the first coach to get fired. Another blown lead. Christy agrees with Casey. I think, folks, all of us in the chat box are all in favor, I think, of a firing of Dan Quinn. I would think, though, Casey, it gets more ramified, bud, if, in fact, the Falcons blow another multiple point lead. If they do that for a third consecutive week, they are in deep trouble if that happens. Also, Isaiah, once he leaves the show, says, my Nick Mullins jersey has use again. Time to dust it off out of the closet. Also, Angel is back. He says, Callan, don't forget, though, that the Bears fans are still upset that they did not draft Patrick Mahomes. I mean, then again, though, Angel, draft night's always a weird thing because you don't know how these guys are going to pan out. And sadly, Chicago has kind of maybe had some buyer's remorse getting Trubisky. And also, Angel also agrees Nick Foles will be the Bears quarterback going forward. Casey says the Bears are cursed on the quarterback side, especially when they draft one. Honestly, it's been a very tortured history, Casey, I'd say. Ever since Rex Grossman took the Bears to the Super Bowl in 2006 against the Colts, it's been a very rough time to see how, in fact, the revolving door has been for Chicago quarterbacks lately. James says, good point here, I think. I believe in Foles until they play the Packers. Especially, I think, as well, James, because Chicago has just had no luck playing Green Bay. I feel like, personally, the past 2 or 3, not longer, for seasons. Where again where Chicago kind of pulled the Falcons and I think they blew a 21-0 lead on the first game of the year last year against Rodgers with that bum knee. So I even James, I don't have faith in Chicago beating Green Bay anyway. Death taxes Chicago Bears losing to the Packers. And also, Angel says, I believe here more so that the Bears have not had a great quarterback, I'm going to guess, since Jim McMahon out of Brigham Young University, part of that 85 Chicago Bears team. Casey King also says, Callan, Steve Fuller, the backup on the 80s Bears, was a better quarterback than Mitch, laughing out loud. And also, Casey says, also don't forget, Callan, they gave up as well on Doug Flutie. Oh, my goodness. And here, Doug had a great career in Buffalo and even in a way kind of resurrected his career here in San Diego. And also fellow WST host and MI6 co-host, John Mathis says, Callan, ha, ha, ha. Dan Quinn has got to go. John, like I said, buddy, I don't see, though, how Dan Quinn, especially, John, like I've said before, buddy, I do not see how Dan Quinn survives this upcoming week. If they blow another lead or they lose again handily, there's no chance he comes back after week 4. And also, Angel agrees with me. I agree, Callan, case in point, but 2020 LA Chargers. Well, mainly, though, more so, Angel, I would say, though, that right now, I'd be pretty, if I was still a Charger fan, very intrigued, though, about how Justin Herbert has held himself together in 2 starts. He looked very good today. Sadly, it was a failed hook and ladder to win the game that would have given the Chargers the win over Carolina. But again, the Chargers find a way to charger. They always seem to lose a game in that style of fashion. And also, Isaiah agrees. Comment is so big it's going to cover my head. Let me actually, folks, change our format here from the big comments to the more smaller version. Even then, still case in point. Isaiah agrees, though. He says, I agree, Callan. Mahomes at the time was considered a project. Needed about 2 or 3 years to get up to par to be an NFL quarterback, given that he had played in an offense like the air raid, that if you put whatever quarterback in, they would go bananas. Nobody knew that he would turn into a star right away like he had done. You really think my Niners would have taken Sullivan Thomas over Mahomes if he had a redraft? Definitely for sure. And also, Angel, one more comment before we, in fact, move on, folks. That's what I loved about the draft. You never know who's going to be good and who. And sometimes the best QBs are drafted in day 2 or day 3. Definitely agree. Case in point for sure. But again, folks, the Falcons again implode and lose 30-26 against the Chicago Bears. The Bears are now 3-0 and right now on top of the NFC North, tied right now with the Green Bay Packers, all by virtue of scoring a measly 74 points in their 3 games, while the Packers and their run and gun offense have scored 122 points through their 3 games. Folks, the next thing I wanted to talk about here was the Bengals and the Eagles. I did have one game I wanted to get to before that, but folks, we have our first NFL tie this season with the Bungles and the Eagles playing to a draw, 23-23, Bengals and Eagles. Definitely, folks, a very lackluster overtime effort by both ball clubs, in my opinion. I mean, just watching the game cast, and it was like punt after punt after punt after punt, and like nobody could find a rhythm in overtime. And again, folks, as a reminder here, sadly, the NFL is still playing overtime like it's being played like 40 years ago where they counted ties. I think, folks, that more so, like I've said for the longest time before you folks probably knew me, I have long considered that the NFL needs to, again, reconsider their overtime structures here. But I'll take that, folks, with a grain of salt right now and talk about this game more so. Let's talk quarterbacks first. Joe Burrow for the Bengals tonight or today. 31 of 44 for 312 yards, 2 TDs, no picks, was sacked 8 times, sadly, for a loss of 56 total yards. His QBR was 51.7 and a 105.5 rating in the ball game, while Carson Wentz was 29 for 47, 225 passing yards, 1 TD, 2 interceptions. He was sacked 3 times for 19 yards lost, a 49.1 QBR, and also a 92.8 rating in this ball game. Folks, honestly, I would be a wee bit concerned if I was a football fan seeing the number of times that we have seen quarterbacks throw the football so far this season. Again, I know they're not baseball pitchers, but still, folks, 45 passes in a game over that stretch of time is very, very, maybe a little bit alarming in my mind at this rate. But again, folks, sadly for Joe Burrow, you get a tie before your first NFL victory. That has got to be probably one of the worst feelings as a rookie quarterback. Again, who's probably been brought, who of course has been brought in to revive a very struggling and scuffling franchise. But both teams, folks, go to 0-2-1 on the season now. So with that in mind, the standings right now after 3 games, that still keeps the Eagles or the Bengals in last place at 0-2-1, while the Eagles are now not tied for last. They're 0-2-1. The hapless Giants right now are 0-3 in the NFC East division. And probably, folks, and honestly, the weakest division where everybody is below 500 in the NFC Eastern Division at this juncture. Tough road to hoe in there, folks, for the NFC East again, where they have every club below 500 on the regular season. But again, folks, more so in this game, I do think, folks, that there definitely needs to be another revivement or another discussion about this NFL playoff rule, or this the overtime rule, the NFL overtime rule to clean up on aisle 3 here. The NFL overtime rule, folks, I think has never worked. Never worked. Just in regards to the aspect of sudden death overtime originally, and then if you did not win the coin toss, I think the stat, folks, I remember a long time ago was if you lost the coin toss, you lost the game. I think 84% of the time. I'm probably off base on that, but I do believe, folks, that the rule needs to be reconsidered. I think Angel had a great point here. He said, Callan, the NFL should adapt the college football overtime, where I believe it is a untimed period. Both teams get a possession from their opponent's 25-yard line. No clock running, 2 timeouts, and it's from the 25-yard line, and both teams get a possession. I would think, folks, you could do that, but maybe not with the 25-yard line thing, but play like a regular, kickoff and stuff like that. But at least give both teams a possession. And if they can't convert, then the game's over. If they give up a field goal, they give up a touchdown, whatever. I mean, I'm not a fan of that either, where the team that scores first, if they score a touchdown the first drive, it's over. But if they kick a field goal, the other team gets a chance to, score. I would think, though, for folks, you got to go to the college system, but give it your own flavor, give it your own seasoning, give it your own dipping sauce, make it your own flavor. Keep the college aspect of it where you give both teams the ball, in my mind. But at the same time, they'll give both teams a shot to win the ball game. And also, folks, let's get to some other comments here real quick. As well, Angel is back. He says, I'm still a Charger fan, but I will not call them LA or Los Angeles. I will definitely not root for that organization by virtue of them stabbing us San Diego fans and San Diego residents and natives in the heart. Christy agrees. I was surprised that this game ended in a tie. Christy, surprised, but also very really kind of like a very shrug moment. I'm telling you, I think the Eagles had a chance to win the game, if I'm not mistaken. I know they tied the game late in the 4th, but then it looked like it was the first quarter of a game where both teams didn't even want to be there in overtime. There was no urgency, no flow. Punts and drop passes, penalties, all that good stuff. Casey is back. He says, count some pretty interesting news. Eagle fans already calling for Wentz to be benched. Does not surprise me, Casey. They had one hell of a day up there in Philly, sadly, at this juncture. And Casey agrees. Knowing Philly, don't be surprised if he gets run out of town before the year is over. And honestly, Casey, I would feel terrible for Carson Wentz, but sadly, Casey, I have a friend of mine, Elliot Lowell, former baseball teammate of mine, went to Cornell University, now lives in Philadelphia. And Elliot's parents, Jeff, his dad, and my dad have coached baseball together since we were kids, 5, 6, 7 years old, 8 years old. And Casey, and everyone out there watching, honestly, but folks, Jeff told me a story this weekend. My dad was coaching a baseball tournament up in Riverside County today and yesterday. That's why we weren't here on the show yesterday, folks. And that Jeff had told me that he had gone to Philadelphia for a game with Dallas playing the Eagles. And he told me, man, it is just, life and death back there with their sports teams. And also Ted Leitner, Padres announcer, can vouch for that because he went back to work in Philly for a bit. And he said, he told me one time when I met him at a SDSU USD basketball game, he flat out told me, he said, son, Philly is like the worst sports town to go and work at or go to because it is like life and death. Like if you lose, people want to, jump off the ledge or, they lose their minds. And he says, Phillies, Flyers, Eagles, Sixers, that is it. No more, no less with that in mind. So I definitely agree, though, Casey, that knowing Philadelphia, he's going to be out of town by year's end. And also, Christy agrees, the NFC East, a.k.a. a hot mess. Hot mess and a flat-out dumpster fire like my hairdo is today from me being in the huge heat or the hot weather out in the Riverside County area. But Christy, I agree. Again, every team, folks, is below 500 right now in the NFC East division. Again, the Washington, Dallas 1-2, Philadelphia 0-2-1, and then the Giants 0-3 on the season. But again, folks, the Bengals tie with the Eagles 23-23. James Gonzalez has a pretty funny one. New OT rule if the game is tied at the end of overtime. Then a field goal showdown should go down between the place kickers. I believe that Atlanta loses that too, James, because they have Young-Hoo Koo, who was the kicker for the Chargers at one point, who couldn't make a game-winning field goal to save his life. So they're also probably out of that, sadly. And also Casey King agrees. He says maybe start on the 50. The 50 would seem fair, or maybe I would think, how about this? College rules in effect, like what Angel had recommended, but your own 25, like it's a touchback on the kickoff. Forget the kickoff, right from your own 25, drive it down the field in regards to that as well. And also, James says, Jalen Hurts better start soon for the Eagles. The NFC East is still winnable, especially, James, if this division keeps being a huge hot mess as it already has been recently. Isaiah has a question. He says, Callan, is Doug Peterson on the hot seat? Isaiah, I don't think Doug is on the hot seat. I'm going to give him a bit more time because they are coming off of a victory in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Isaiah, I'm not that quick to fire coaches who have delivered a championship or have delivered a deep playoff run. Now, Atlanta's a whole nother story, Isaiah, because we have seen them blow leads of that huge magnitude 3 times, excluding the Super Bowl, back-to-back weeks. We have not seen that done, I believe, in 20-plus years of the NFL recently. Angel also agrees. He says, Callan, the Eagles had a shot, but they committed a dumb penalty that put them out of field goal range and punted. I believe that was when they were on the Bengals 40, driving in to probably win the game, and they had a false start, I believe, that just killed the drive. And also, Angel agrees, and Callan, great show. Thank you, buddy, for tuning in. And James agrees, Callan, Uncle Teddy is awesome. And also, Casey agrees about Philadelphia. He says, I agree. They run their athletes out of town, and they even ran Mike Schmidt into retirement. That, folks, just sadly shows you how bad it is in Philly. And Angel agrees. He likes Casey's idea of the 50-yard line to start overtime. I think a lot of us would agree with that at this juncture. But again, folks, the Bengals and Eagles chalk up the first tie in the NFL season. But again, folks, if you had an NFL tie on your 2020 bingo card, congrats, you're a winner. With that, folks, the last game I wanted to get to today, great game. Seattle and Dallas, the Seahawks win 38-31, a great shootout game between two great quarterbacks, between Dak Prescott and Russell Wilson in this ballgame, with the Seahawks were able to pull away just ahead of the Cowboys by virtue of a potential game-winning play that, for one, folks, Dak Prescott nearly, in fact, is sacked to end the ballgame, keeps his footing, stays alive, but sadly his pass is picked off by the Seahawks. Sadly, Dak, a very bad idea to take that sack, or at least avoid the sack, but to throw the ball, though, into huge coverage by the Seahawk defense. This game, folks, was very wild and honestly probably one of the better games on the entire NFL schedule in my mind. As Dak Prescott finishes the day 37-57 for 472 yards. With 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, he was sacked twice for 11 yards lost, a QBR of 73.2 and a quarterback rating of 93.6, while Russell Wilson was just a bit better on Sunday, 27-40 for 315 yards, 5 touchdown passes for probably the MVP of the league through 3 weeks for Russell Wilson. Again, 5 touchdown performance for Russ. He was sacked, though, 4 times for 20 yards lost, had a QBR of 83.5 and 130.7 on his quarterback rating. And folks, like I said, though, folks, a couple times here, Russell Wilson might be the most underrated quarterback in my mind in the NFL because he's playing in a market like Seattle, who's only been relevant the past maybe 5, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 years, maybe a bit longer. But like it gets like very overlooked maybe by a lot of national writers, maybe even people that are in the NFC West or even in the league in general. But at the same time, though, folks, those numbers are pretty damn impressive. And to outduel a great quarterback, I think, probably one of the other under the radar, maybe underappreciated quarterbacks in the NFL, and Dak Prescott. Again, both these guys were just on their A game again. Like I said, Dak threw for 472 yards and literally was within a touchdown and an extra point of winning the game. Now, folks, the only thing, though, that I think could be blamed on the Cowboys, it does not, folks, go on Dak Prescott. Stop with the blame on Dak. All this is not on Prescott. Look at your kicker, Greg Zuerlein, who missed 2 PATs that could have kept this game closer and honestly probably could have given Dallas the victory if his 2 points, those PATs, would have been good. But at the same time, folks, I know everyone's quick to blame Dak and blame the coach. But I think, though, that you have to probably look elsewhere. And sadly, in my mind, Prescott gave the Cowboys the best shot to win the ball game. But if there has to be blame cast, I would have to go with Greg Zuerlein for the fact of the 2 missed PATs earlier in this game. And he nearly missed a third one, I want to say, he kind of pulled it off to the left and he was able to recover and get it through the uprights. But folks, I don't want slander on Dak Prescott. Without Dak, Dallas is not in this game. They are not within they're not within a touchdown and hopefully a PAT of tying Seattle in the fourth quarter. But I just think, though, folks, that sadly for Dallas, that goes on the kicker in the game, in my personal opinion, by virtue of Greg Zuerlein. 2 for 2, yes, on field goals. But Greg went 1 for 3 on extra points. 1 for 3. And his longest one was 43 yards for the made field goals he had. But honestly, my goodness, I mean, if there's one more person that could go in Callan's doghouse from the Cowboys, it's got to be Zeke. It has got to be Ezekiel Elliott in my mind, who definitely, I think, has to in fact be in the doghouse as well. As we in fact, folks, welcome back in our man Isaiah Leung back into the broadcast here tonight. Isaiah, I know, man, it's probably very, I don't know, man. This is very interesting to definitely, in fact, say the least here. Actually, we'll hold off on Isaiah for right now. So he said not right now. He wanted to come and talk some baseball. We'll get to that, folks, in just a second here. But with that, though, folks, is that honestly, I think, though, that Zuerlein and Zeke deserve to be in the doghouse tonight for Mike McCarthy, because for one, today was a very, very uncharacteristic day for Ezekiel Elliott. By virtue of the fact, folks, of Zeke dropping passes, not really running the ball very well today, very off day. And even Joe Buck even said that on the broadcast today on Fox, was, he had a very off day for sure. So that definitely, folks, is where I think the blame goes. And I know that people don't like kickers to, in fact, be blamed for winning or losing games. But honestly, though, when your quarterback has a game like he did today, your running back was nowhere to be found, sadly, today, in Mr. Ezekiel Elliott, the blame has to go to the kicker for 2. Honestly, those 2 points could have been huge